Welcome, everyone. It's Brother Doug. I'm with my sister Shoshana, my sister Sadie, our brother Dennis, and our sister Sally, and we are going to be continuing today's Torah study for the week of Tabernacles, for the weekly Feast of Tabernacles. So we're going to be continuing here in chapter 12 of Bereshith, Genesis, and it says, "And Yahuwah said to Abram, Go thou away from your country, from the house of your father, to the land which I will show you, and I will make you to a great people." So B is actually inserted by the English translator. That's obviously why they have parentheses on that word. So in the original Aramaic, it would not be there. It would just say, "I will make you to a great people, and will barak you, and magnify your name," which we've seen happen. Everyone pretty much knows Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. In the three main monotheistic religions, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and even people that are not believers know the name Abraham. And I would even say Isaac and Jacob the same way. "And you shall be Baruch. I will barak him who baruchs you, and him who curses you I will curse." Now, this is a big verse that gets completely misinterpreted in Christianity and Judaism. Judaism takes this meaning that anyone that curses, someone that's in Judaism is going to be cursed, or curses someone that's in that, is a Zionist even. Someone that doesn't support the Zionistic state of Israel is going to be cursed. So I've heard all misinterpretations of this verse, so many different misinterpretations. This is talking about the seed of Abraham. This is talking about, in context, Paul says in Galatians 3:29, if you are in Messiah, you are Abraham's seed. It has nothing to do with ethnicity. Okay, so people that want to take this verse completely out of context, it basically
sure.
Mm-hmm.
It surely has nothing to do with Judaism.
Yeah,
that is a cursed religion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty much about Gentile-born and natural Israelite-born believers in Messiah. That's what the seed of Abraham is. So you have the natural olive branch, the wild olive branch, coming together as one olive branch, and basically the wild branches got grafted into the cultivated natural branch. So anyone that believes in Messiah, anyone that believes in Yahusha in the new covenant is considered the seed of Abraham, and this would include anyone that believes in Yahusha and follows the Father, worships the Father in spirit and truth. So if someone curses us, they get cursed. That's how we can take this scripture in modern day. I believe, in my humble opinion. And him who curses
so
you
you have to be doing the works of that Yahusha did, the works of the Father, which keeping his law is part of it, and just obeying him in all things.
Yeah. It says, "Who curses you, I will curse, and through you all the progenies," meaning all the people of the earth, "shall be Baruch." So meaning all the people there through Abraham, which this is the promise. This is being children of the promise. When you enter through Messiah, believe first in Messiah before the works. But when you believe in Messiah and what he did for you and your works follow, you are now considered part of this baraka that's being spoken right now. It says, through all the tribes of the earth shall be Baruch, because of Abraham. And Abram went away according as Yahuwah had spoken to him, and Lot went with him. And Abram was a son of 75 years old in his fourth going from Haran. And Abram took Sarah his wife, and Lot his brother's son, and all the possessions which they possessed, and the beings whom they had made subject to the law in Haran. Now that's interesting. And went forth to go into the land of Canaan. So you had Ur of the Chaldeans is where they originally were, where Abram's family originally were from. They stopped at Haran with their dad Terah, and now Yahuwah is taking Abram to Canaan, basically where the land he's gonna give him in the covenant to promise to his seed. So now the land of the promised land, he's taking Abram and the rest of his family, really. I think it might just be, let's see, it says, Abram took Sarah his wife and Lot his brother's son. So Abram, Sarah, and Lot are going there. And he made subject to the law in Canaan. Okay, so it's Abram, Sarah, and Lot. I just want to make sure I'm being accurate here, what the scripture's saying. And they went forth and go into the land of Canaan. They came up to the land of Canaan, and Abram traversed through the land unto the place of Shechem, unto the plain of Moreh. Okay, so he went to Shechem and Moreh and Canaanah. I think this is supposed to be the Canaanites. They translated it a little weird here. And the Canaanites was then in the land, and Yahuwah revealed himself unto Abram and said, to your sons will I give this land. Here we go. Here's the promise. And he builded there an altar before Yahuwah, who had been revealed to him. And he ascended from there to the mount of the east of Bethel, and spread out his tabernacle, having Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. And he builded there an altar before Yahuwah and prayed in the name of Yahuwah. So this is the first time it's recorded that he prayed in the Father's actual name, not Al Shaddai. Okay. So he actually was calling the Father Yahuwah at this point. And Abram migrated to the south, and there was a famine in the land, and Abram went to Mitzrayim. Now this is interesting. To sojourn there, because the famine was strong in the land, and it was that as he drew near to enter Mitzrayim, he said to Sarah his wife, behold, now I know that you are a woman beautiful in sight, and it will be that when the Mitzrites see you, they will say, this is his wife, and they will kill me. And you will they reserve. Say now you are my sister. Oh boy. So this is like a little gray area here. He shouldn't, in my opinion, Abram should not be doing, is making his wife lie. I understand why he's doing it, but we'll have to see how the Father looks at it. Because
it was not exactly a lie, because
he
said he was
half.
She was daughter of his father or something. I think she was actually the daughter of his brother. Yeah.
It was a weird thing where she was technically his sister, but not directly. Yeah, I would have to. We'll get to the point here, point where he actually makes it specific, but it almost sounds like it's like a half lie that he's trying to have her tell, but so that's kind of weird. But I guess she's technically his sister, but we'll see as we get further through Bereshith, that it may be well with me through you, and my life may be preserved through your words. And it was when Abram had entered into Mitzrayim, the Mitzrites saw the woman that she was singularly fair. I don't know why it was singularly fair. I don't even know how that makes.
Doesn't mean anything to us today. It's old English term, I reckon.
Yeah, singularly. I mean, singular is supposed to mean like, by itself or solitary, like kind of. So that's kind of weird.
Perhaps it meant there was no one so pretty. I don't know.
Possibly, yeah. That would make more sense that she was extremely fair, or she was more fair than the Mitzrayim women, maybe. That would have made a little bit more sense. And the princes of Pharaoh saw her and extolled her to Pharaoh, basically brought her to Pharaoh. And the woman was taken to the house of Pharaoh, and Abram was well treated on account of her. And he had sheep and oxen and donkeys and servants and maidens and camels. And Yahuwah brought upon Pharaoh great plagues. Now, this is pretty interesting. I don't think you get this in the Masoretic text or the Septuagint. It says he brought on Pharaoh great plagues instead of a dream. Now, in the Masoretic text, even in the ISR, I believe this verse would say he brought a great, terrible dream or nightmare to trouble Pharaoh. So it's kind of interesting. It says plagues. And upon the men of his house for the affair of Sarah. Yep.
Mm-hmm. All the women were barren because of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For the affair of Sarah, the wife of Abram, and Pharaoh called Abram and said, "What is this that you have done to me? Why did you not show me that she is your wife? Why did you say she is my sister, so that I would have taken her to be to me to wife? And now behold your wife, take and go." And Pharaoh instructed men concerning him, and they conducted him away, and his wife and all that he had. So this is the story of Pharaoh. Pretty much, he's actually acting righteously, this specific Pharaoh. He's like, what are you doing? You were about to have me take your wife. He's basically not trying to commit adultery, basically. He's like, what are you doing, man?
I can imagine how Sarah felt. What are you doing to me? You're my husband. You're supposed to take up for me. You're not supposed to let other men just take me. Yeah. Oh, I would be so mad.
Yeah, Abram, he needs to have a little bit more trust in the father here. He needs some Caleb trust here. He needs to man up a little bit, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, it goes to show that even the most righteous, considered the most righteous, had problems.
Oh. So let's see.
He definitely had problems.
Yeah. So that's pretty much what I took from chapter 12. He left Babylon, aka Ur Chaldee. He eventually gets to the Promised Land, but then he goes down to Egypt because of a famine. And now he had the situation with Sarah and Pharaoh. So we'll see what's going to happen here in Genesis 13. And Abram went up from Mitzrayim, he and his wife and all that he had, and Lot with him, unto the south. And Abram was exceedingly strong in cattle and silver and in gold, and he proceeded according to his encampments from the south and unto Bethel, unto the place where he had spread his tabernacle at the first. And now he's back where he started. That's kind of interesting. Between Bethel and Ai, to the place of the altar which he had there made at the first. So this is something this is why I believe the Torah of Moses was not the same thing as the law of Yahuwah from the beginning. This is why I say there were certain differences, okay? In the Torah of Moses, you can't just make an altar anywhere, okay? So there is differences. I know some people want to, we get so on fire for the Torah, we start kind of exaggerating stuff and start saying, well, the Torah was back in the Garden of Eden. Doesn't really say that. Yahuwah's law was in Eden, yes. But the Torah of Moshe is a little bit different from Yahuwah's eternal law. There's some differences. You got the Levitical priesthood, you got certain additions to the law that there might have not been around the time of Genesis. So we have to understand that too. The Apostle Paul even says, that because of sin, the law was added. And, I think there's somewhere Paul talks about as sin increased, the law increased. So that you can kind of take that as more commandments came by more sin. So just something to think about. And Abram prayed there in the name of Yahuwah. So again, Abram is praying in the name of Yahuwah. Okay. So, and Lot also, who went with Abram, had sheep and oxen and tents, and the land could not support them, that they might dwell together. And there was contention between the shepherds of the flock of Abram and the shepherds of the flock of Lot, and the Canaanites and the Perizzites then dwelt in the land. So now you got another tribe here, possibly of giants. And Abram said to Lot, let there not now be contention between me and you, between your shepherds and my shepherds. For men, brothers are we. Is not all the land before you? Separate now from me. If you go to the north, I to the south, and if you to the south, to the north. And Lot lifted up his eyes and saw all the plain of Yardana. I guess that's supposed to be the Jordan, I guess, or the Yarden. And it was altogether a watered place before Yahuwah had destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, as the garden of Yahuwah, as the land of Mitzrayim coming onto Zoar. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, let's see, yep. And Lot chose to him all the plain of the Yardana, and Lot went forth before him. They were separated, each man from his brother. Abram dwelt in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelt in the cities of the plain, and extended unto Sodom. Oh boy. And the men of Sodom were wicked in their riches and guilty in their bodies before Yahuwah greatly. Now that kind of really hints at it. If you know about Scripture, what it says, what Paul says about sinning against your own body. Okay, this is sexual sin. So when it says they were guilty in their bodies before Yahuwah greatly, obviously it's talking about homosexuality. It's hinting at it. And Yahuwah said to Abram after Lot was separated from him, lifted up now your eyes and see from the place where you are there to the north and to the south and to the east and to the west. For all this land that you see, to you I will give it, and to your children forever. And I will place your children numerous as the dust of the earth. So that's interesting. So that as it is not possible for a man to number the dust of the earth, so also your sons shall not be numbered. Now that's kind of interesting. Arise, go through the land in its length and in its breadth, for unto you I will give it. And Abram spread his tent and came and dwelt in the plain of Mamre, which is near Hebron, and built there an altar before Yahuwah. So now he went to the Mamre, the plain of Mamre, which is near Hebron, and now he built another altar to Yahuwah. So now we're about to get into chapter 14, but before that, I would like to actually analyze what we just read. So we got, basically, we got Abram went back to where he started at after they left Egypt. Now he's going back he's journeying back, I guess, to Canaan. Now he's going to be near Hebron and Mamre, and basically now they might be dealing with some giants, it seems like. You got the Canaanites, the Perizzites, and it's interesting. What I really like about this chapter too was the shalom between him and Lot. I really like that. And we are going to see something though bad for Lot, though unfortunately he chose to go to Sodom. He went a little too far out and chose his possession as Sodom. So we're going to see how that works out for him, and we kind of got an idea, a little taste of how bad and how wicked Sodom was. They're wicked in their riches, so probably they probably don't use righteous scales and stuff like that, how it talks about that in the Torah. They probably greedy for gain was probably one of their sins, and they're guilty in their bodies, probably hinting to, being a sodomite. That's where you get the word sodomite from, referring to homosexuality. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I might have missed to add here. Let's see here. Well, they both had great possessions. And that's pretty much it. Also, at the end, I wanted to look at when he gave him the promise of the covenant that your children would be as numerous as the dust of the earth. I wonder if there's a little bit more than that in this Masoretic text or the Septuagint. I could have swore it says as numerous as the sand of the sea, and not just that. It talks about the angelic army. Says, let me see here, because that's kind of weird that it only talks about the dust of the earth in the Aramaic there. Let me see here. Okay, maybe this is not the chapter I'm thinking of. Then it might be the next chapter. Okay, so the first one, he just says the dust of the earth. Okay. All right, so all versions just say.
It was definitely telling Abram. It was definitely telling Abram that he would have a great, huge amount of descendants, and we can see them today. Not only are there a lot of descendants that come from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but you have Ishmael. So there's a lot of descendants that come to Abraham, and he did have children with Keturah too. So there's even more on that side.
Yep. And I have a little page open because the next chapter we're about to get into this character named Amraphel, king of Shinar. So I have something opened known as the Jewish Encyclopedia, and this actually talks about who Amraphel is. So after I read the first verse, we'll expand on who this Amraphel guy is. You'll be pretty surprised. That's all I can say for right now. And it was in the days of Amraphel. Wow. Look at what the Aramaic shows here. King of Babel. Arioch, king of Eleazar. Chedorlaomer, king of Elam. And Tidal, king of peoples, or actually more specifically in the Septuagint, it says Gentiles or nations. They made war with Berah, king of Sodom, and Bersha, king of Gomorrah, Senab, king of Admah, and Shenaber, king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, which is Zoar. So this is known as basically the 4 versus the 3 that you might have heard in Christianity or any other religion that that's somewhat based on the Bible. They call this the war of 4 versus 3. Okay, so all these were assembled at the plain of the field, which is the place of the Sea of Salt. Some other manuscripts will actually say the Dead Sea, which is kind of interesting because that's where we get the Dead Sea Scrolls. So I want to stop here and show people who Amraphel is according to the Jewish Encyclopedia.com. Okay, so it says Amraphel, king of Shinar, Genesis. Who invaded the west in conjunction with Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, and others, and destroyed Sodom. The identity of the name has long been a subject of controversy among Assyriologists, basically people that study the culture of the Assyrians, and is not even yet established to the satisfaction of all scholars. Schrader was the first to suggest cuneiform inscriptions and the Old Testament, or Tanakh, that Amraphel was Hammurabi, king of Babylon, the 6th king in the 1st dynasty of Babylon. This is now the prevailing view among the Assyriologists and Old Testament scholars, the transformation of the name Hammurabi into the Hebrew form Amraphel is difficult of explanation, though a partial clue is perhaps furnished by the explanation of the name in the cuneiform letter as equivalent to Kimta Rapastu, a great people or family. On this basis, Am equals Kimta, and Raphael equals Rapatu or Rapashtu. Hammurabi was the founder of centralized kingdom of Babylonia, the founder of Babylon. With the capital and at the city of Babylon, the length of his reign is given in the native list of the kings as 55 years, but this long period is not perfectly certain, as a recently discovered chronicle throws doubt upon some features in the king list, from which number 55 is subject or much dispute. Sayce locates his reign at 2376 to 33 BC. Now that's important, so they actually have a date there. Early Israel, page 281, so this is like citing a book here. On basis of the native sources and counting the second dynasty with its long reigns, for example, 60, 56, 55, 50 years as of the equal historical character with the first. Okay, so this guy, Lemon, and he has a long name, prefers the figures, while Homel would still further reduce them. The higher figures and more difficult is identification with Amraphel, or the period of which the narrative of Genesis is usually supposed to refer. Hammurabi began to reign in Babylon when the Elamites were in possession of the kingdom of Sumer and Akkad, which we actually just read about so far in Genesis 14. The king of Elam is part of that war. They were driven out.
Could Amraphel be the same, the same person as the one we know of as Nimrod?
Yep, that's why I was showing this to the viewers. Yep, this is pretty much what this article is saying. Hammurabi, this guy named Hammurabi is the founder of Babylon. We know in Genesis 11, it was founded by Nimrod, or Genesis chapter 10, it says that they went to a plain of Shinar. So in scripture, it says that Nimrod found Shinar, aka Babylon. So Hammurabi would actually be his real name, technically. Nimrod actually just means he who rebels. So it's a title. So this is the Jewish encyclopedia.com. I'm using a secular source here that gives information like this. So this is, most scholars even agree that Amraphel, aka Hammurabi, was Nimrod. And actually you can find that also a second witness of this is in the book of Jasher, believe it or not. So there's actually multiple witnesses of that, of him being Amraphel. So anyway, so now we know who Amraphel is. Now we get some context of Genesis 14. So it says, all these were assembled at the plain of the field, which is now the place of the Salt Sea, aka the Dead Sea. 12 years they had served Chedorlaomer, and the 13th year they rebelled. Oh, maybe this is why we see 13 everywhere. Friday the 13th. Yeah, I wonder why. So technically it could be symbolic of a number of rebellion, possibly. That's why the occult like to use that, possibly. Just a theory I have. And in the 14th year came Chedorlaomer and the kings who were with him, and smote the giants who were in Ashtaroth Karnaim. So remember what it says in Genesis 10 of the Septuagint. He was a giant hunter before Yahuwah. I'm just saying, try to put the puzzle pieces together here. Okay, the mighty who were in Kemta, and the terrible ones who were in Shaveh Kiriathaim, and the Horites who were in the mountain of Seir. So Yahuwah possibly could even have been using him to kill other Nephilim. It's kind of a weird concept, but Yahuwah could be doing the same thing he did in the times of Enoch, technically.
Well, Nimrod was against Yahuwah. You gotta remember that.
Yeah, he was, but Yahuwah can still use him to kill other evil giants, just like he uses Satan for his purpose.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. So who were in Shaveh Kerathim, Horites. So the Horites he was destroying, the plain of Paran, which lie upon the desert, and they turned and came to the plain of the division of judgment, which is Rekam, and smote all the fields of Amalekah, and also the Amorites who dwelt in Ain Gadeh, and the king of Sodom, and the king of Gomorrah, and the king of Adamah, and the king of Zobim, and Tile, king of Bela, which is Zoar, went forth and set battle in array against them in the plain of the field. Kedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of peoples, or king of Gentiles, and Amraphel, king of Babel, and Arioch, king of Eleazar. 4 kings against, okay, my bad, I'm mistaken here. 4 kings against 5. My bad. I must have misremembered this chapter. And the plain of the field had many pits from which they raised asphalta, and the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled, and they fell there. And they who remembered fled to the mountain, and they took all the possessions of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their food, and went and they captured Lot. This is where Abram comes into the picture here. So they took Lot. They like kidnapped him, basically. You know, they basically took Lot captive, you could say, and his substance, son of the brother Abram, and went. And he had dwelt in Sodom, and came from those escaped, and showed to Abram the Evrah, and he had remained in the plain of Moreh. Amorah, the brother of Eshcol, the brother of Anir, they were Abram's men of covenant. Now that's a little interesting. Men of covenant. That's a little interesting. And Abram heard that his brother had been captured, and he armed the young men born in his house. 318. Interesting. 300. Kind of interesting. And pursued unto Dan, and he divided against them by night, and he and his servants, and smote them. Wow. And pursued them unto Hobah, which is northward of Damasek, and he recovered all the substance, and Lot also the son of his brother, and his substance. He recovered the women also, and the people, and the king of Sodom came out to meet him after from smiting of Kedorlaomer, and the kings who were with him, at the plain of Mathphana, which was the king's place of racing, or, you know, whatever that means. And Melchizedek, king of Jerusalem. Whoa, okay. That's something the Masoretic doesn't have. Okay.
Right.
King of Jerusalem brought bread and wine. He was the minister before Aliyah. Okay, they actually they do it a little bit better for the singular here, what it would have been originally for the mighty one, the most high. Ali Allah, or I guess that's how it would be pronounced, Allah, meaning the most high, Elohim, basically, the most high. And he Baruch him and said, Baruch be Abram before Allah, whose possession is heaven and earth, and Baruch be Allah, who has delivered your enemies into your hand. And he gave him one in the 10 of the whole, and the king of Sodom said to Abram, give me the beans and the substance, take thou. And Abram said to the king of Sodom, I have uplifted my hands in prayer before Yahuwah Elohim Most High. So basically, that Hebrew title that I just read here, that's what it means, Most High in English, just for anyone that wants to know. Whose possession is heaven. If it from a thread unto the sole of a sandal, I take of all that is yours, except of the food for the young men, and share of the men who went with me. Emer, Eshkol, Mamre, and Mamre, these will receive theirs. So that's the end of Genesis chapter 14. Interestingly enough, we get this character named Melchizedek, king of Jerusalem, which in the New Testament, we find out that's another title for Yahusha, pre-incarnate Yahusha. So it seems like this is where we get the verse in the New Testament, I think in the book of John, where Yahusha says to the Pharisees, he said, Abram rejoiced to see my day and was glad. So to kind of reconcile with the New Testament and with the Tanakh, I truly believe this Melchizedek person is Yahusha before he took on human form. That would be my that would be how I would reconcile this with what he says in the New Testament. Because this is the only place in the Tanakh where you can prove what he says is definitely 110% truth in that statement. That Abraham literally saw him. He lives. So just for anyone wondering why I'm connecting Melchizedek with Yahusha. So that's, but anyway, so that was the end of chapter 14. We got about a minute and a half left, so we might be coming back for another chapter. Please stay tuned. We might be coming back, but if not, we will be starting chapter 15 at a later date, so please stay tuned. We will be starting chapter 15 next time of Bereshith, Genesis. Hopefully this message was a baraka to all that were watching and listening. Hopefully you got something out of it. I know I got a lot out of it. So thank you for joining us and listening in and tuning in. For brothers and sisters in Yahusha the Messiah and Yahuwah Almighty, thank you for joining us today, and have a great rest of the week of Sukkot. And please join us for the rest of the week. Shalom.
And hit like and subscribe.
Yes, hit like and subscribe. Please reach out to our emails. I'm going to start putting our emails on my YouTube channel, my email, Shoshana's email. So for any believers that want to reach out to us, just, you can reach out to us, and I'll put in the description of all of our videos now. So it's easier for you guys to reach out to us for anyone that needs fellowship. Thank you. Shalom, guys.
Shalom, shalom.
Shalom.
Good reading, brother.